My name is Cassidy Hale. I'm 29 years old. And this is the story of how my own mother called me a selfish and greedy thing, because I refused to pay for her extravagant dinner party of 30 people, and how that one moment set me free forever. From the outside, my childhood looked picture perfect. We lived in a sleek white-columned mansion in the wealthiest corner of Bellwood Heights, the kind of place where every lawn was trimmed by private gardeners and every mailbox gleamed like chrome jewelry. Ours was no different. With a swimming pool in the back, a 3-car garage that housed my dad's Ferraris, and a private cinema room where I spent more time than I did with my own parents, people assumed we were lucky. Blessed. The Hale family. Polished, prosperous, enviable. But inside, it was cold. Not the kind of cold you fix with sweaters or fireplaces, but the kind that sinks into your bones because love doesn't live there. My father, Gregory Hale, was a self-made titan in the financial investment world, a man who spoke more to stockholders than to me. He was respected, feared even, never warm. My mother, Claudia, was a socialite addicted to image, designer heels, iced lattes, luxury charity galas, and gossip with her ladies' club. She had no job, no drive, and barely any presence in my life except when she needed a photo op to keep up the illusion of the perfect family. I can count on one hand how many times she looked me in the eyes and asked, "How are you?" We had nannies, dozens of them. None lasted long. Claudia always found fault. One folded the towels the wrong way. Another dared to feed me spaghetti with the wrong sauce. But then came Linda, the only adult in that house who saw me. Linda wasn't just a nanny. It was warmth. She read to me at night, taught me how to make chocolate chip cookies from scratch, and hugged me without looking at her watch. When she whispered, "You're special, Cassidy. Don't let this house make you feel invisible," I believed her. But she didn't last. I was 8 when I walked into the kitchen and heard my mother's voice, icy and precise. "Is that a Cartier bracelet you're wearing, Linda?" My mother's arms were folded, her tone thick with accusation. "Yes, ma'am," Linda replied quietly. "It was a gift from my mother." "Oh. Or did you help yourself to it from somewhere else?" Claudia tilted her head, eyes scanning her like a predator. "I will not have staff dressing like the people who own the house. You're dismissed." The next morning Linda was gone. No goodbye. Just vanished. I watched from the window as her car pulled away and felt a new emptiness settle in my chest. Something that never left. My father noticed my sadness for a while. But work soon reclaimed him. He'd pat my head, ask if I was doing well in school, and then vanish into meetings or international flights. Claudia, meanwhile, filled the silence with spa appointments and wine-soaked brunches. When I tried to speak to her, she'd nod absent-mindedly while texting her friends about someone's trashy new facelift. I grew up in silence. Then everything changed when I was 14. My father came home one night, pale, drained, but smiling as always. "Did you eat?" I asked, seeing the exhaustion in his face. "Not yet," he replied. "Just a few things to wrap up first." He never finished them. The call came an hour later. Claudia screamed so loud I thought someone had broken into the house. But it was worse. A heart attack, sudden, massive, and fatal. Gregory Hale died slumped over his desk. The funeral was full of somber faces and crocodile tears. But I saw it, the flicker in my mother's eyes. Not sorrow. Fear. Fear that the golden life she'd built on my father's back was slipping away. She didn't even wait a week before declaring she'd take over the company. "Women have better instincts," she said, all smug bravado in my father's office. The boardroom full of seasoned financial directors looked at her like she was a joke. And they were right. Within 6 months, the empire collapsed. Executives resigned. Clients pulled out. My mother kept spending like nothing had changed, until the bank seized our mansion, our cars, everything. We moved to a modest rental in a less glamorous suburb. Claudia called it temporary. Called it reality. After high school I didn't look back. I chose a university 2,000 miles away. Crestford University. A full scholarship and the sweet distance of 2 time zones. Claudia was furious. "You're abandoning me," she hissed when I told her I'd be moving. "I'm going to college," I said calmly. "You'll be fine." She wasn't. Not really. During my 4 years in college, she never called me once unless it was to complain or guilt-trip me into sending money. "You know I had to fire the housekeeper today. I can't afford help anymore," she whined on one call. "Do you even understand what I've given up for you?" I bit my tongue. I worked 2 jobs, studied finance, and refused to let her bitterness consume me. I was determined to be more than just the daughter of a failed socialite. I was going to be someone. When I graduated, with honors, I got an offer from a top financial firm before I even tossed my cap in the air. I moved to the city, got a sleek apartment, and started earning enough to take care of myself. And against my better judgment, my mother. At first, I sent her $1,000 a month. Quietly. No strings. Just so she'd be okay. She never said thank you, but I assumed she knew. Then came the Lexus. I leased it in my name, thinking she'd finally feel safe again. She didn't thank me for that either. Eventually, I paid off some of her debts. The internet bill. A few utility accounts. All without a word of gratitude. But the guilt still whispered, "She's your mother. You're all she has." Then the text arrived. "Are you free Saturday night? I'm having a small birthday dinner." Smiled. Maybe she was finally changing. Maybe it would be different this time. What I walked into wasn't a small dinner. It was a red carpet affair. Chandeliers, tuxedos, champagne towers, and a private dining hall buzzing with 30 strangers, most of whom looked like they hadn't seen her in years. And the kicker. She never told me she expected me to pay. More than betrayal, it was clarity. And it was the moment everything snapped. The moment I stepped into that dining room, my breath caught in my throat. Every inch of the space screamed decadence. Gleaming silverware, floral centerpieces so massive they blocked half the guests' faces, and dishes that looked like they belonged in a royal banquet rather than a small birthday dinner. My heels clicked on the marble floor as I followed the waiter past a row of champagne flutes and hand-rolled sushi platters. There were people I'd never seen before. Men in designer suits, women dripping in diamonds, laughing like they were the ones footing the bill. I wasn't angry yet. Not then. Just confused. That changed when my mother waltzed over, dressed like she was attending the Met Gala. Hair in soft curls, lips painted the same deep red she used when she wanted the world to see her as powerful. "Cassidy," she said brightly, stretching her arms as if she hadn't just blindsided me. "You made it." "Mom." I glanced around, lowering my voice. "What is this?" "It's my birthday party," she said as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You got the text, didn't you? You said it would be a small dinner." She waved a manicured hand dismissively. "It is. Just a few close friends. 30 or so. Nothing crazy. 30 or so. In a 5-star restaurant. With a guest list that clearly included her old high society friends. The very people who'd turned their backs when the mansion was foreclosed." My stomach twisted. I sat down slowly, trying to keep my composure. The waiter handed me a menu. There were no prices. That's how I knew we were somewhere expensive beyond logic. The dinner went on. People chatted about old vacations to the Riviera, boasted about yachts and golf memberships. My mother laughed too loud at their jokes, touched arms she hadn't seen in years, performed like her life depended on it. And in a way it did. This was all about one thing, image. She wanted to prove she still mattered. The food came: lobster, duck confit, truffle risotto. The wine never stopped flowing. The laughter got louder. And the whole time I felt like I was watching a theater production with no intermission. Then the waiter approached me with a soft, rehearsed smile. "Miss Hale, may I bring you the bill?" My jaw clenched. I turned to my mother. "You told them I'd pay." She looked mildly annoyed. "Cassidy, please. You always take care of dinner when we go out. What's the difference?" "The difference," I said, heat rising in my chest, "is this isn't dinner for two. This is a gala." Her voice sharpened. "Are you really going to embarrass me in front of my guests?" "They're not my guests," I replied. People started to notice. Conversations dulled. Glasses paused mid-sip. And then she said it. "You are such a selfish and greedy thing." The words slapped harder than any hand could. My cheeks burned, not from shame but clarity. She didn't see me as a daughter. She saw me as a wallet with legs. My silence, my support, my monthly deposits, they weren't love to her. They were owed. I reached into my purse, pulled out $200, and placed it on the table. "This is my share," I said. "The rest is on you." Her eyes bulged. "You're walking out. I'm done being your ATM." And I stood. The silence in that room was deafening. For a woman who lived on applause, my exit was the cruelest thing I could have done. I didn't wait for her response. I didn't glance back at the stunned faces or the waiter now holding a bill that would probably cover someone's monthly rent. I left the restaurant. The cold night air hit me like freedom. I didn't cry. I didn't even breathe heavily. I just walked. That night, in my hotel room, I didn't turn on the lights. I let the glow of the city creep through the window as I stared at the ceiling and realized I was done. I picked up my phone and started making calls. First, I canceled the automatic $1,000 transfer that had been leaving my account on the first of every month for the past 5 years. Then I called the car dealership and arranged for the Lexus, still under my name, to be picked up the next morning. "Will there be an issue retrieving the vehicle if she refuses to release it?" I asked. "No, Miss Hale. It's registered to you. We'll tow it if needed." Then came the Wi-Fi provider. Cancelled. And finally social media. I typed it carefully. No drama. Just clarity. Effective immediately. I will no longer be providing financial support to my mother or any family member. All previous arrangements have been terminated. Please do not contact me for money. Hit post. My hands trembled, but not from fear. From release. For the first time in my life, I had drawn a line. I went to bed that night and slept more peacefully than I had in years. Not because everything was solved, but because I had finally stopped bleeding for people who'd never once bandaged me. The next morning, the storm began. By the time I woke up the next morning, my phone looked like it had survived a digital earthquake. 22 missed calls. Over 50 messages. And the voicemail inbox. Full. All from one name, Mom. The first few texts were blazing with rage. "What the hell is wrong with you? You humiliated me in front of everyone. You think you're better than your own mother." Then came the guilt. "You're leaving me to starve. You have no idea how hard life has been without your father. I sacrificed everything for you." And finally the begging. "Just help with rent this month. That's all I'm asking. $500. Please, Cassidy. Don't abandon me like this. I'm your mother." I stared at the screen, numb. Not surprised. Not even hurt. Just confirmed. It wasn't love she felt. It was entitlement. I locked the phone, tossed it into my purse, and checked out of the hotel without a word. I didn't need closure. I'd already found it. Sitting in that overpriced dining room, watching 30 strangers sip wine I hadn't agreed to pay for. But if I thought that was the end, I was wrong. Over the next few days, the vultures descended. One by one, the family members who hadn't spoken to me in years, some not even at my father's funeral, crawled out of the woodwork. Aunt Karen sent a passive-aggressive message. "I'm disappointed in you, Cass. Your mother raised you with everything she had. And this is how you repay her." Uncle Marcus called me personally. "Your father would be ashamed if he saw this." Or cold. Unforgiving. Is this what success does to people? Not a single one of them asked how I was doing. Not one. They weren't calling because they cared. They were calling because the money had stopped flowing, and it scared them. It was like I had stepped out of some invisible contract they all believed I was bound to. That my job in life was to pay for their comfort, their mistakes, their parties. And now that I wasn't, I was the villain. So I blocked them all. Every single one. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. I just disappeared. And for the first time I lived. I moved into a new apartment downtown. Spacious, sunlit, and finally mine. No more second-guessing my grocery bills. No more skipping vacations because I was helping out. I booked a 2-week solo trip to Europe. Paris, Amsterdam, Prague. I walked cobbled streets, ate pastries by the Seine, watched sunsets from train windows, and no one could call me. No one could guilt me. I was alone. But I wasn't lonely. Freedom isn't loud. It's quiet. It's sitting in a cafe with no one asking you for anything. It's sleeping in without dread crawling under your skin. It's laughing at something silly and realizing it's the first real laugh you've had in months. 2 months passed. Then, out of nowhere, my phone rang, from a number I didn't recognize. I almost declined it, but something told me to pick up. Hello. There was a pause, then a familiar voice. Weaker. Less polished. Cassidy, my mother said. It's me. I'm using my neighbor's phone. I didn't say anything. I miss you, she said softly. I just wanted to say I'm sorry about the party. Got carried away. It was stupid. I wasn't thinking. Closed my eyes. Her voice used to make me brace myself. Now it barely registered. I'm having trouble with rent, she added after a pause. Could you help? Just this once. There it was. Even when she pretended to apologize, it always came back to the same thing. What can you give me? Took a breath. I can't help you anymore, I said calmly. You have to take care of yourself. She didn't miss a beat. Cassidy, you can't talk to your mother like this. Then start acting like one. I ended the call. And I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't going back. Not to the fake hugs, the manipulative tears, the endless expectations wrapped in silk bows. I wasn't her daughter by duty anymore. I was my own person. For the first time in my life. After that call, she never reached out again. Not directly. I'd hear things from old acquaintances. How she had moved into a smaller apartment. How she complained about me at every brunch and book club that would listen. She told anyone who'd lend her an ear that I was an ungrateful, heartless child who abandoned her after all she did for me. But none of them offered to help her. None of them opened their wallets. Funny how people love to judge your choices, but won't lift a finger when it costs them something. And me. Kept building. I poured myself into work. I grew in my firm, earned a promotion, traveled more, laughed harder, loved deeper. I spent time with people who knew how to give love, not just take it. Sometimes on quiet nights I still thought about her. Not because I missed her, but because I missed the idea of her. The mother I wished I had. The kind of mother who would have loved me without conditions. Who would have held my hand through grief, celebrated my victories, and told me I was more than a walking credit card. But that woman didn't exist. Not in my story. And I had finally stopped waiting for her to appear. There's something strange about healing. It doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt. It's not one grand gesture or tearful moment of closure. It's gradual, quiet, almost unnoticeable, until one day you're walking through the grocery store, and a song comes on that used to remind you of the pain, and this time, it doesn't sting. That's what happened to me. I no longer winced when I heard the word mother. I stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. I wasn't looking over my shoulder for the next emotional ambush. I was, for the first time in my adult life, free. My mornings began with sunlight spilling across my kitchen island, not the echo of guilt. I brewed my own coffee in peace, went on runs through the city, smiled at strangers and worked hard. Not because I had to save someone, but because I wanted to build something of my own. And the money finally felt like mine. I wasn't rich. Not mansion rich. Not 3 Ferraris rich like my father had been. But I was stable, respected in my firm, and earning enough to live well and plan for my future. I opened a savings account I nicknamed Cassidy's Life Fund. I donated quietly to shelters. I even started investing in startups run by women from low-income backgrounds, because I knew what it felt like to be invisible, to give everything and be told it's still not enough. And then came the day everything turned. I was reviewing quarterly reports at my firm when my manager, Cole, knocked on my door. "You have a visitor," he said, eyebrows raised. I asked if it was a client. She said it was personal. I frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. Did she give a name? Claudia, he said. My blood froze. My mother hadn't called, texted, or emailed in months. Now she was here. I stood slowly, heart hammering. I didn't know if I was angry or scared. Maybe both. But I walked to the front desk, each step louder than the last. And there she was, wearing oversized sunglasses indoors, as if shielding herself from judgment. Her once immaculate hair looked rushed. The Chanel bag was replaced by a worn leather tote. She stood in heels too high for someone trying to play it casual. She looked smaller. When she spotted me, she smiled like nothing had happened. Cassidy, you look well. I didn't return the smile. What are you doing here? I just wanted to talk, she said, voice softer than I remembered. Face to face, like mother and daughter. I motioned toward a bench in the building's courtyard. It was shaded, quiet, away from ears. I needed to breathe. We sat down. She launched into small talk. Asked about my job, my apartment, whether I was seeing anyone. She said it with forced ease, like we were long-lost friends catching up. Like she hadn't called me a selfish disgrace or begged me for rent money 3 months ago. Then her voice dipped. I'm not here to beg, she said, hands clasped tightly in her lap. I just wanted to explain. I stayed silent. I thought I was doing what was best. I thought after your father died, if I just kept everything running, kept us in the same circles, the same lifestyle, we'd be okay. But we weren't, I said quietly. No, we weren't. She looked down at her hands. For the first time in my life, she actually looked ashamed. I know I've hurt you, she said. More than once. When you walked out that night and then canceled everything. I didn't know how to live without the image. Without the help. You mean without me paying for everything? Her eyes filled with something, maybe tears, maybe regret. I wasn't sure yet. I know how that sounds, she said. But it wasn't just about money. It was control. And I clung to it because I didn't have anything else. No one else. I inhaled slowly. That was never my responsibility. I know that now. We sat there in silence for a moment. Then she asked the question I hadn't seen coming. Do you think there's any way back from this? I stared at her. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't manipulation. Sounded like honesty. And I didn't know how to answer. I had spent so many years building walls because with her I had to. And now she was asking to come through the front door. But I didn't rush. I think, I said slowly, that if you want to rebuild something, it has to start with truth. Not birthday parties. Not money. Truth. She nodded. And then, surprisingly, stood to leave. I won't ask for anything, she said. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. She walked away. No scene. No shouting. No theatrics. And I sat there stunned. For the first time ever, she had shown me something real. Not a performance. Not an angle. Just a piece of who she was underneath it all. It didn't erase everything. It didn't undo the years. But maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something new. A boundary that wasn't a wall, but a gate. The weeks that followed were strangely quiet. My mother didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't show up unannounced. I almost didn't know what to do with the silence. How to trust it. I kept expecting the other shoe to drop. Letter. Voicemail. A desperate favor disguised as a polite invitation. But it didn't come. She really was trying to stay away. First I felt relief. Then confusion. I wasn't used to her respecting boundaries. I wasn't sure if it was genuine or just a temporary calm before another storm. But regardless of her motives, I had made a promise to myself. I wouldn't go back. I didn't. Instead, I poured everything into myself. I took on a new portfolio at work. More responsibility, a chance to lead. I began therapy, something I'd put off for years because I didn't think I deserved help. I told my therapist everything. From the night Linda was fired to the birthday ambush, to the moment I stopped sending money and finally started living. She said something I'll never forget. Children who grow up with emotional neglect often become adults who confuse obligation with love. That hit me harder than any of my mother's insults ever had. 'Cause she was right. All my life I had chased my mother's approval. Not because I thought she'd finally love me back, but because I thought it was my job to earn it. As if being her daughter came with an eternal price tag. But love doesn't demand receipts. A few months after our encounter at the office, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. The envelope had no return address, but I recognized the cursive immediately. Claudia Hale. My mother. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No long story. No manipulation. Just this. Cassidy. I've moved into a smaller apartment. I'm working part-time at a floral shop. It's not glamorous, but it's peaceful. I still tell myself stories about us. Sometimes they're real, sometimes I wish they were. I know I can't undo the past, and I won't ask you to. I just want you to know I'm learning. I'm trying to be better. I reread it 3 times. It wasn't an apology. Not really. But it was something. The tone was different. Soft, uncertain, human. I didn't write back. Not because I hated her, but because I had nothing to add. I didn't need to fix her. I didn't need to carry her anymore. I simply folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with the old photographs I rarely looked at. A symbolic peace treaty that didn't need signatures. Life kept moving. And so did I. One evening, I was invited to speak at a women's finance summit in Chicago. A last-minute cancellation gave me a prime spot. I walked on stage, heels steady, blazer sharp, and delivered a 20-minute talk about financial independence, generational cycles, and learning to protect your emotional credit as much as your financial one. Afterward, a young woman approached me with tears in her eyes. I grew up in a house like that, she whispered. I thought I was the only one. Hugged her. She wasn't. None of us are. Later that night in my hotel room, I opened my laptop and began drafting a short ebook. Breaking the Blood Contract. Reclaiming Your Life from Family Guilt. It wasn't meant to be anything big. Just something real. Something that might reach someone who was sitting in the dark like I once had, wondering if walking away meant they were a bad person. Doesn't. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and your family is to say no more. Not out of anger, but out of survival, out of peace. I published it quietly. No big launch. Just a few social media posts. I didn't expect much. But 2 weeks later, I woke up to an inbox flooded with messages. This saved me. I finally found the courage to say no. I read it in one sitting, crying the whole time. It resonated deeply. Because the world is full of people who have been guilted into silence by those who should have loved them the most. People whose wallets are held hostage by, but I'm your mother, and after everything I did for you. People like me. I started getting requests for interviews, podcasts, Q&As. I wasn't trying to become a speaker, but the more I spoke, the freer I felt. And the more I told my story, the more I realized it didn't belong to me alone. It belonged to everyone who had survived love that came with conditions. Claudia never tried to take credit. She never reached out again. Whether that was because of shame or pride, I'll never know. But in a way, her silence was the kindest thing she'd ever given me. It allowed me to become someone I never thought I could be. Whole, unafraid, unapologetic, and truly free. Strange looking back now. If you told me 5 years ago that I'd one day be standing on stage, in front of hundreds of strangers, speaking about financial boundaries and emotional trauma with a microphone in one hand and a best-selling book in the other, I would have laughed. Or cried. Probably both. But that's where I was. The quiet little ebook I'd written in a hotel room had taken on a life of its own. Breaking the Blood Contract hit a nerve. I received emails from all over the country. Stories from daughters, sons, even elderly people in their 60s who had only just cut the cord from emotionally manipulative parents. The movement grew. I got invited to conferences, featured in magazine interviews, even asked to consult on a documentary about generational trauma and wealth. And yet, through all of that, the applause, the accolades, there was still one person I hadn't heard from again. My mother. Claudia had gone silent after that letter. I didn't know if she was proud, or furious, or ashamed. I checked once or twice quietly just to see if she was okay. She had, in fact, taken a job at a flower shop. The owner's daughter had posted a picture of Miss Claudia on social media once, arranging tulips with a surprisingly peaceful smile. And that was enough for me. I didn't need reconciliation. I didn't need a tearful reunion at the airport or a sudden hug in the middle of my book tour. I just needed to know she wasn't still destroying herself chasing a life that had long since ended. I was done trying to fix her. I was too busy fixing myself. One day, I got an invitation to speak at my old university, Crestford. It was part of a leadership panel for alumni who had gone on to make a meaningful impact in their communities. I hesitated at first. I wasn't sure if I was ready to go back there, the place where I first learned to separate myself from her shadow. But something inside me said yes. The event was simple, elegant. No chandeliers. No fake friends or fancy wine. Just folding chairs, warm coffee, and curious students who actually wanted to be there. After my panel, a young woman came up to me. Probably 19. Quiet. Nervous. "My mom makes me feel guilty every time I spend money on myself," she said. "She says I'm selfish for not sending her more each month, even though I'm in school and barely scraping by. I read your book. I think about it every time I'm about to cave in." I reached out and took her hand. "You're not selfish," I said. "You're surviving. You're allowed to live your own life. You're allowed to build your future without apology." He teared up. "Thank you." Afterward, I sat on the lawn of the campus quad where I used to read in silence, headphones in, pretending I wasn't scared about the world waiting for me. I looked around at the students walking past, some confident, others crumbling under expectations no one else could see. And I thought about legacy. Not the kind my father left behind in stocks and real estate. Not the kind my mother chased in pearls and dinner parties. But the kind you carve out when you decide this ends with me. No more being the family ATM. No more pretending money equals love. No more suffering in silence. That was my legacy. Not bitterness. Boundaries. Not revenge. Release. And just when I thought I had closed that chapter for good, life had one more twist waiting for me. The letter arrived in a plain white envelope. No return address. Again. But the handwriting. It was unmistakable. Claudia. I sat at my kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold in my hand, as I read the letter she'd written carefully, maybe over several days. "Cassidy, I watched one of your talks online. Friend sent it to me. First I was angry. I thought you had twisted everything, made me the villain. But I watched the whole thing. And I finally saw it. You weren't trying to hurt me. You were trying to save yourself. I never realized how deep the damage ran. How many things I said, casually, carelessly, wounded you for years. I called it motherhood, when really it was control. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know. I'm proud of you. You became the kind of woman I never knew how to be. I hope one day when someone asks you about your mother, you'll be able to say, she didn't always get it right. But in the end, she learned. Love, Claudia." I sat there a long time after reading it. The sun dipped low outside. My tea went completely cold. And for the first time in years I cried. Not from pain. Not from anger. But from something I wasn't sure I'd ever feel. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the past. But it softened it. It let me exhale the breath I'd been holding since I was 8 years old, standing by the window, watching Linda leave without goodbye. There's a moment, a rare, quiet moment, when you realize the storm has passed. Not because the sun is out. Not because the world is suddenly perfect. But because you're no longer bracing for the next wave. You're no longer flinching at shadows that look like old pain. That's how I knew my story had changed. I was free. Not just financially, though that mattered. Not just emotionally, though that mattered more. But spiritually. Deep down, where guilt used to live and obligation used to rot my bones, There was now space. Is ownership of me. I didn't respond to my mother's last letter. There was nothing more to say. She had given me what I'd spent most of my life begging her for. Not money, not apologies, but recognition. And in that fragile handwritten note, she had finally done what I never thought she would. She saw me, and she let go. So I let go too. I moved forward. Quietly, without drama, without posting about it, without needing the world to clap for my healing. I turned down a few interview requests. I began mentoring young women in finance. I taught them how to balance books, yes, but more importantly, how to balance life. How to protect themselves from burnout, from emotional leeches, from the toxic lie that their value depended on how much they gave to others. I told them this. Love doesn't ask you to go broke. Loyalty doesn't demand silence. And family isn't who needs you. It's who sees you. I watched those words land. I watched the tears. I watched heads nodding. And I knew I wasn't just healing myself anymore. I was starting something. Ripple. Maybe even a revolution. I opened a foundation that year, the Hale Fund, named not after my family's fortune, but in defiance of it. It offered scholarships to students estranged from their families, especially those who had been cut off financially for choosing to live authentically, safely, freely. LGBTQ+ students, first-gen college students, survivors of financial abuse. The ones who, like me, had been told, "You owe us your future because we gave you the past." I wanted them to know you don't. You owe no one your peace. I didn't know if my mother ever found out about the fund. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. It didn't matter anymore. The woman I had spent so long trying to win over had finally said the only thing I ever needed to hear. Not "I love you," but "I see who you are. And I'm proud." That was enough. One spring day, I walked through a bookstore in Midtown and passed a display table. There, next to memoirs and guides on generational healing, was my book, Breaking the Blood Contract. Stop. Ran my fingers across the matte cover. And smiled. Not because I was famous. Not because I was successful. But because I knew a younger version of me. The one who used to sit in a dark bedroom, hoping her mother would finally put down the phone and just look at her. Would be proud of the woman I'd become. I walked out into the bright city air and breathed deeply. The weight was gone. The chain was broken. And I had never felt more whole. Cassidy's story is more than a tale of money, betrayal, or even forgiveness. It's a story about boundaries, about the strength it takes to walk away, even from the people who raised you, when they refuse to respect who you've become. It reminds us all that saying no is not an act of rebellion. It's an act of survival. And sometimes, the most radical form of love is the one we give to ourselves. If this story spoke to you, if you've ever been called ungrateful, selfish, or cold simply for trying to protect your peace, then you are not alone. You are never alone. Share your thoughts in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Echoes, where the truth always finds its voice, and justice echoes louder than pain.